Thank you, everybody. In case you're still waiting for Brinda Karat to come, she's not going to come. It's just both of us. So if you want to stay, you're going to be imprisoning yourself for 1 hour. But will assure you it will be fun and good dialogue. Thank you, everybody, for taking time. This is the closing session of the 7th edition of Kerala Literature Festival. It's an incredible honor and privilege to be with you all here, second time on this wonderful beach of Kozhikode, and also meeting many excellent, exciting, young, middle-aged, old Kerala people who are impressively working through their own politics in current times. So we are going to talk about politics. We have with us the multimedia star, and I need not say many about Anurag minus Varma, who I've been a great fan and admirer of, and it's another of an opportunity for me to come and discuss and talk about his great craft and skills. And if you are just sitting and wondering on your phone, and if you have the network, just look him up. He's an amazing, he's on Instagram, but also started his YouTube channel. His podcast is ranked among the globe's 1% when it comes to the rankings. So first of all, when we say doing everyday politics, I realize in Kerala, people do everyday politics every day. So there's a difference of people doing everyday politics as in politics of everydayness, but the party politics, the affiliation and the caste and so communalism, religion, all kind of clubs into it. So Anurag, you are now coming from New Delhi. Do you do politics at all?
Hello, check in. Okay. Thank you so much, Suraj. The topic itself is quite interesting, like the everyday politics. And especially when we talk about politics, we always think of something like angry or resisting somewhere or, in that terms. But there is also an everydayness in it. Like you said, in the Kerala, you can see the politics around. But I would say even in the north, if you go, then one of the element of the politics is basically theorizing what is happening around. Then you will figure out that the biggest unorganized literature festivals are happening on the chai ki tapri. People are discussing about socio-political things. Like last time I was there, randomly standing at a shop, and people were discussing about Ukraine and Russia war, and the guy told me about 10 reasons why America is an interventionist nation, and that was a local person. So the idea of politics itself, we can't really detach ourselves, because it is also an essential way to figure out the meaning of life.
I was booking a ticket, a flight ticket, and it didn't occur to me before, but it occurred to me recently. When you fill in the details when you're booking a ticket, there's a column called first name and last name, and then I think it was a Japan Airlines, because they would only do such kind of things, I guess. And they said, if you don't have a last name, use your first name as your last name also. So use twice. And then our friend Anurag here was trying to book a ticket. His stage name is Anurag minus Varma, and the ticket was booked as Anurag minus Varma. Now the difficulty is there is no person in Aadhaar card by the name of Anurag minus Verma. So they
No
had
person
to,
in the world.
in the world
technically.
rather,
Yeah.
in the database. And so he had to change. And so you just have one name. At least in Tamil Nadu, I know people have second names, which are their father's names, and sometimes it's the caste name. Are you trying to be cool by removing a last name and say I'm non-caste, I don't, that belongs to circle?
It's a very interesting question, because you talked about Japanese airlines, but I think, if I'm not wrong, there was a circular issued by the Dubai government that if you don't have the last name, then maybe you can't travel to Dubai. So I face this problem a lot. Like when I went to US, then they asked me, "What's your last name?" I said, "I don't have a last name." They said, "How is possible? Everybody has a last name." So this thing, like, this is the reason why during my college time, when I used to go to some festival or some places, they used to randomly allocate me the names. Like one day I would become Anurag Sharma, one day they would, name me Anurag Bharadwaj. So I was also a caste fluid person in that sense, like breaking all the barriers of the caste and because of the surname thing. But talking about why my surname is Anurag minus Varma is not because of coolness, but it was initially because of the anxiety when I was in class 10. Then I don't know, because I forgot the spelling of my name. Like, is it Varma, V-E-R-M-A, V-A-R-M-A? I got so anxious while filling the form that I wrote Anurag. And from the class 10, it's Anurag, that's it.
Wow.
And now it automatically became a symbol of anti-caste. So that's how it happened.
I
Yeah.
think it's very interesting, like how things happen to us without us consciously uh, deciding, and then you stick by it because you just did accidentally a good thing and you felt just incredibly empowering about it. But why not? Anurag Sharma sounds like a very like musical name. Why did you not maintain Sharma, and why did you hell bent on Varma?
So no. Also, one thing I also wanted to mention is that the whole thing about the name and the surname carries a lot of, let's say, ego trip, lots of legacy. Like you hear a lot, even in the films. Like even in the progressive circle, you will hear, we are the Malhotras, we are the Singhanias, and the Singhanias, we are the Gurgs who do things like that. So there is a lot of, not just the name is not just associated with your identity, but there is a lot of legacy and everything which you want to preserve. But technically, my whole work or my overview is not to think of anything as sacred, and bring the element of fusion and the remixes in your work and in the everyday. Like, I don't think of anything as a pure thing. Like, this is how it used to be. Like, for example, I was eating sambar vada at a restaurant and I saw they sprinkle onion on it. I was very surprised, like, to see this version of. So I posted the photo on internet and people said that, what is this kind of, this is remix of this is not pure, quote unquote. I said, I'm okay with impurity. I'm okay with fusion. So that's why I don't even consider my real name very seriously. Like, for example, they have even wrote my name is Anurag minus V-A-R-M-A, which is a wrong technically, but I didn't bother to correct it.
I mean, it's very interesting in India. A spelling can definitely change your caste. And when I say definitely, it's not assuring, but very decidingly, some change of spelling in that 3, 4, 5, 6 letter word might mean entirely something else, some different clans. And I've seen this people when I say, especially in North India, similar sounding names, or also in Maharashtra, for example, and then they will say, oh, we are not them, or they are not us. And then when you look into it, it's actually very interesting. An English spelling difference that accounts to a pre-English era kind of surname that they have given.
I also wanted to mention, ask you this question. In fact, I was reading a few days back about, not reading, but somebody from the Maharashtra told me about Vinod Kamble.
Yeah.
Like, his original name was Kamble, which obviously is a Dalit surname, and then he kind of twisted this surname to Kamble is about the cricketer Vinod Kamble, just to hide that or somehow dilute it a bit. Do you know about this story?
I mean,
Want to talk about it?
Vinod Kamble was by far the best batsman that surpassed Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, they were both, in case you don't know the history, they both were contemporaries. They played together, and given the talent Vinod had, he had scored, I think, about double century or some sorts. And so, but again, the kind of caste imbalance worked. Sachin Tendulkar, of course, the kind of caste Brahmin privilege continued to advocate, and received advocates in his name. And Vinod Kamble then was really resigned to being a very derogatory, slandering, because he was a Dalit, and typical stereotyping of what it meant for a failure of a Dalit story was that. And I think it created that kind of canon. And I think one of the ways, Anurag, I was thinking in one of the best things of Anurag's artwork is that he utilizes this very much classicalized idea of culture, knowledge, interpretation, and mimics them in a way that brings us to everydayness. If somebody is reading a French author, Deleuze, for example, a great depth of that knowledge, but we will rarely see that being performed to an everyday audience who might speak in a regional language or the mother tongue. And then you suddenly see Anurag minus Varma bringing in deluge or bringing in the postmodern definitions of our society and applying it while showing the moving picture to, for example, a person who's serving a chai or making a chai in some corner of Delhi, or some student protest happening somewhere, or just going to a haunt house, or going to his own families in Rajasthan where they are celebrating. And I think that's a very, and I wrote long ago, and I think that's a soothsayer call that I did. It was a clairvoyance that Anurag minus Verma is a really intelligent creator for intelligent as well as savvy audiences. Now, one of the things you do in Hindi,
Yeah.
and then you bring all this complicated manifestations of various philosophies. How did that happen? Did you just like wake up one day JNU and then you are like, because you work in film industry as well. Could you maybe reflect a bit on that?
I think one of the element is obviously about exploring the everyday and just to look at things from your lens. And the other thing, like especially the kind of political humor I see in India, is it's just more about othering because most of the people are Savarnas. And when they look at the humor, they see in the other.
Correct.
Like they will see in the your domestic helper or like some other people, they don't see themselves as somebody who can be made fun of because they think making fun of is an idea of ridicule or the laughter is that just the idea of ridicule, but obviously it is much more than that. So one of that reason like I created was to see these spaces, like even the intellectual spaces I see, let's say JNU, let's say any literature festival, like everything has to be so serious, so pure, and you can't make fun of it somehow. So this is the reason why I went to JLF and made fun of, like made a satire on JLF, and I said that it's a Comic Con festival of intellectual where everybody is cosplaying intellectual. So like everybody, I think every place, every space can have this idea of absurdity which we can explore. So I was invited to Ashoka University. So I went there and made a satire on Ashoka University's privilege, lens. Yeah. Because of it, many people got offended in Ashoka, like how can he make fun of it? So that thing I don't understand, like especially this whole liberal intellectual class, they don't like to be made fun of, or they don't want that the gaze should be at them. So one of the main thing about my work is also about that. So this is the reason. Like I want to look at the humor where it's difficult to look at, not in the obvious things.
So you've been in Kerala now. Was this your debut trip, or have you been here before?
I have been here, yeah, one year back.
Okay.
But I mostly traveled to Kumarkom, Kochi, which I really liked, and then to Calicut and Wayanad. Yeah.
Do you think Kerala Literature Festival will be subject of your satire and intellectual interpretation?
I mean, quite possibly. Let's say I'm shooting around, like looking at the things, and if I sit on the edit, then yeah.
I mean, you are very much convinced about the concept of absurd. And you're looking for absurdities, and even in this kind of a normal vignettes of let's say even a wave, you might find a kind of a dynamo of an absurdity. And absurdity is absolutely, it's a fantastic thing because everybody is absurd in its own way. There's a phantom that's working behind you. And then you cast the light, your camera on the subjects, on the general public, and then there's an absurdity. But then you've been advocate of loserism. I kind of feel I found somebody who is belonging to my clan because loserism is something that he's been. Do you want to reflect more on that and what it connotes to you?
Yeah, I'm writing a loser manifesto basically, which is my next book, and it is a demotivational book. It is not anti-hustle book. It is really about loners. It is really about. It is about the revenge of extrovert. It is about the revenge of introverts in the world controlled by extrovert. So it's about that. It's like enjoying the life from the corner. Like you're not in the center and just observing things and not looking, not really running after it, but yet working towards whatever you want to do. So it is also connected to the philosophy of, let's say, Taoism and Buddhism also, like Big Lebowski's movie, if anybody has seen. So it is about that. So yeah, it's just about looking at the absurdity in the everyday ness. For example, in Kerala, I really like the buses. I think they are philosophical in their
Okay.
design, because I also posted on social media. So I was looking at a bus. So there was a quote of APJ Abdul Kalam, and like you know that most of the quotes are like the fake attributed quote to Mr. Kalam. So it was also like that. So there was a photo of APJ Abdul Kalam, and down under it was written, "Life is beautiful when." That's it. There was nothing afterwards. And I was so, like I was puzzled for many days, like how to complete this thing. Like I was, for 3, 4 days, I couldn't, relax, because I want to, life is good when, like, there is something, it was like that bus was like a philosophy in
That's
motion.
a,
Like,
write down, life is beautiful
when?
when.
There's
Let's reframe. Life is beautiful when.
when. The question mark. It
Or-
can be a question mark. Life is beautiful when?
I mean, one can read it in many ways, right? Life is beautiful when. You can read it in one way. I think that painter, I think the painter had to take revenge on those people who have been advocating some kind of social message. He wanted to make it. So I think what you are saying, you're writing a manifesto of the introverts. So are you contesting an election for absurdist republic of some introvertistan, where you will be their leader and sort of representing them to take on the world?
No, that would be the anti-loserism. Like, if I win because of that, that would be anti-loserism. So yeah.
No, but seriously, see, I mean, to come back to this essence of loserism, like the idea of losing is considered a banishment of your own qualities. And nobody understands that if you play something, if you do something, there's an element of victory and there is an element of defeat. But then defeat is conditioned in such a negative aphorism that one has to become celebrated or one is a loser. And if you think about everydayness, losing means gaining something. If I am opening myself, the container of my heart, to create space for something, I will have to evacuate some of the heaviness, for example, to create it. And so loserism doesn't sound like necessarily a bad thing. Now that you say, and I'm reflecting on it, I think I would like to sign up if there is any club or something.
That's how I do the conversion. But like, for example, you do Vipassana meditation.
Yeah.
So that's also losing your 10 days, but you gain something out of that. But like, for example, I'm from art field and I have many artist friends. Like, one of the best artists, or like the best, writers, are also people who are doing their work in silence, in the quietness. Not really, like, for example, one of my mentor, he is also somebody who literally lives at his home, does his work, make his film.
Who is the mentor?
Amit Datta, he's a filmmaker. So he does work outside that whole glamour, outside of, with that whole, trying to achieve some kind of fandom. But I think his struggle is mostly with himself and how to navigate through the art world. So that is the whole idea. Like, for example, even on the social media, let's say somebody is a creator or whatever. So like that running after the algorithm, like algorithm will one day grace me. So you are like literally bowing down to the algorithm, like whatever it is asking me to do, I'll do it. And then to resist and say your voice, even if that is not being graced by the algorithm, or if that is being picked by algorithm, and still you are doing it, that is the whole essence of creating.
I think it's very
something.
interesting, right? I mean, the whole, if you think about losing something, loserism, or losers, right? In many senses, the prophets, the great thinkers, the shape shifters of the world were in their contemporary life, at some point were losers, were somebody who were disdained, somebody not appreciated, somebody who were discarded. And in many senses, we see there is a prophetic node to being a loser. And I think what that also essentially doing is it's subverting the idea of obsessive victories. Yeah. And today, a baby gets into kindergarten, and I fear they might have a banner of a big cutting hoard saying that my kindergarten 3-year-old child got into a LKG school. We are celebrating, and everybody, dog, family, everybody, relatives, photo. We see that kind of, we need to celebrate something of that nature in its essence. But since we are talking about this politics, bring it to back, you are a social media star. Many of us here follow you, look at you, and then social media also has a different angle. Tell your personal experience, man. How has it been for you? Were you under crossfire? How do you deal with the pressures? And tell me, how should we, regular folks, treat social media?
I mean, there are many phases of it. Like initially, when you are new to the social media and that whole praise element comes into the being, like people are appreciating what you're doing and algorithm is also rewarding you. Then for the initial, I think 1 year or 2 year, it feels very surreal. It feels very strange to be appreciated by this number of people. So that is like a dreamy kind of state. You don't really figure out what is happening. Like when I became viral, like many of my videos became viral. So yeah, for one year, it took me some time to process what is happening because there are so many people who are liking and everything. But I think after that, it is also very much important to be detached from that medium. And rather than making the social media as your mode of communication, or let's say where you communicate to a lot many people, I now prefer to just post my stuff and go. Like it's like, yeah, post and run. That's it. That's what I do, because that whole idea of both the praise and the negativity sometimes can become very overwhelming to deal with.
So for example, if people, if our friends here want to be content creators, I don't want you to advise them, but just tell a couple of points to them about this is what happened to me, A, B, C, so that probably if they're anticipating doing something, or there's potentially a roadblock or something, they might be able to relate or maybe find way.
I mean, there are a lot many things in that. First of all is, I would say, find what really interests you. That is the whole thing, that what really you want to say. So social media is not something which produces any kind of art, or let's say it's more of a distribution medium. So I mean, if you really want to produce some kind of serious work, then you have to really study that whole form, like if editing, how it works, the traditional style of editing, how it works, the idea of cinematography, how it works, like if you want to create something. So these kind of element, you have to first look at the form, like how the form have evolved. So that kind of training, maybe you not follow in that sense, like the filmmaking training also happens like that. Maybe you don't have to follow when you're making the film, but the rules, what are the rules of the cinematography, what are the rules of comedy and these things, you should be, I think, aware of. And then you create something. And sometimes I think people are very much focusing on social media, since it's a immediate platform. So people follow things which are immediate or which are in the trend, which are the topics. But sometime I personally think that if you distance yourself from this whole cycle of trend and whole thing, and want to create something which can be seen even, let's say, 1 year or 2 year after, so try to create those kind of things. That's what I follow. Like, for example, my podcast is also not something which is on the trending topics or which are the current topics. These are the topics which are important. Now you can listen to the podcast even after 3 years, even after 4 years. That doesn't changes. So that has been the philosophy. It doesn't give you the instant rewards of the algorithm, but I think it is very important archival for the future.
You are basically, a kind of a conscious work you're trying to do, not follow necessarily the trends that might disadvantage the kind of craft you want to bring up. Now, you run a very popular podcast, and you have people from all kinds of colors and hues and backgrounds and stuff like that. So, as it said, a king is loved in his kingdom, but hated in the neighbor's kingdom. So, how has happened with you, getting popular and stuff like that? And some people may say, why did you invite this person, that person? I don't want to be part of it. And how has it happened? How has that been?
The curation part.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good. Like, I remain mostly private, so like I mostly have my conversations are mostly, let's say, yeah, work related and these things. So I don't really hang out that much with people. So that thing kind of reduces that whole pressure to invite people or invite that people. Most of my invitation are, I think, based on the idea of instinct and the whole angle of the storytelling and also the topic, because sometimes the guest really has interesting story, but maybe that whole maybe that is not fit for a podcast medium. Podcast medium is also very different. It is the form of it is it's quite different, so it's all instinctive based. So even I can't really say that how exactly I select my guests. Like, even I don't know.
So let's say if somebody wants to just talk about what's happening in Kerala, for example, say some student reaches out to say, hey, we have not received our grants and fellowships that we are receiving, and this problem is in Kerala. It's been terrible. The government is not been releasing the funds, and then they, let's say, shoot an email to you. How do you make an assessment of that?
I think the topic has to be little universal than the local, because there are some topics which are suited for the media. Like, if you put those topics in the media, then maybe the resolution can happen. In podcast, resolution is not going to, it's not a resolution medium. Like, you can't resolve an issue through a podcast. It's more of a conversational thing. So that is the whole thing about the podcast. So sometimes people come with the issue. I say, I can't, like, it has to go to the media. Like, the podcast is anyway, there are not huge number of people who are listening. Podcast audience and everything is very different. So if you want to send an awareness through something, then I think there are other medium. But if you want to tell a story which has a larger universal scope, then the podcast become very important.
And then aren't you being selective about it then?
I have to be selective, because obviously in 1 year I only do like 20 episodes. That's it. So I'm choosing very, very limited topics and limited conversations. So that is also the reason, because I work on so many different kind of mediums, like writing books. Recently written a children's book, now writing something, then I'm making my feature-length documentary, then something is happening on the social medias, many things are happening, then the YouTube. So work is distributed among so many mediums, so that it becomes very difficult for me to, just focus on one thing.
I mean, so, you obviously are operating in the ecosystem of social media, and social media is clearly influential. Now, it kind of trends and stuff like that, and you do it. How seriously one should take? I ask this because, I mean, there's extreme form of toxicity of either kind and every kind. I mean, there's no pure sense of belonging. Everybody has had exposed themselves, and then, there is a clan of clandestine, anonymous orphans who just try to, find their parentage through some kind of, How does that happen when a popular figure who's creating a content, who has a certain conscience, and then gets a message or gets tagged into something, and then that just like, I was not even trying to tell that. How would people deal with it? How does Anurag minus Varma deal with it?
I mean, initially I used to get little worked up because of that, like the random messages and these whole thing, negativity and everything. But later on, I realized that basically it is just an irritation of somebody who is just scrolling his phone somewhere, getting bored by things, and there are many factors when that hate message comes to you. So, so it is. So now I don't really think of it as a very serious thing. I just look at it from a very detached point of view. But I think it would be very interesting to ask you, like, you also get fair share of, obviously, appreciation, lot of appreciation, but also a lot of criticism. Sometime for your article, sometime for something you tweeted, sometimes something on the Instagram. So how do you deal with it, especially since you are traveling most of the time, so you are sitting on the beach, looking at the sunset, suddenly, there is a there is a message which is really abusing you on social media. So how to deal with that?
I feel like I want to take the flight back to where that person is, meet him and have one-on-one. The gangster instinct kicks in. It's like, let's just face off and let's do it. And I tell you, guaranteed, the people who want to abuse. And there's this whole trend that happened where people are espousing their disadvantage to put down your disadvantage. It is a miasma. It's a bizarre feature of this social media ecosystem, and many times there's so much fakery going on. But then, there's one thing I realized: people were writing in sophisticated languages and all of that, and certain kind, and then you realize, hold up, that person might as well be my colleague, or that person has well be something somewhere happening, and and sometimes you just wish, I just know this motherfucker. Who is this bastard? I just want to know this. I want to deal with this, man. I want to take head on. I want to just do it. I want to show. But then, then you are like, you are bigger than them. You are an excellent motherfucker. Then this extremely kind of a fleabag connotation that comes with it. So it's somebody, people keep on asking, how do you deal with it? And the unfortunate part of that is we have missed out on that part. I started Twitter only because I wanted to save articles so I can go back and later read them, because it will come on the feed, and then it's a good kind of a digital resource. But then COVID, you and I talked about it. COVID really created so many unemployment, and internet was fairly available. Yeah. That really created this edges of a certain nature where people are just like, how do I deal with it? And there's all kinds of profanity. And sometimes people claim that they are from your community, your side, your faith.
Turns out to be upper caste then.
Turns out to be, guess what? And somebody doing some kind of ridiculous Western imposition. There is an imposter utilizing certain language, and you're like, when did it happen? And then you think about it. And I think that kind of social media education needs to be, but Anurag, listen, I mean, you are among the most followed creators, who is very original and who is very critical. You were loved by the Indian media once when you were in America. Why were you trying to tarnish the image of our country? How dare you go abroad to America and disrespect my country and my prime minister? I detest you for that, and I condemn that.
Maybe you have to give the context what happened. Okay, you are talking about a video basically. When I was in US, I was just entering into a blues bar. So they asked me that, can we see your COVID certificate? Because that was a post-COVID time, like COVID recent got eliminated, that whole restriction and everything got recently. So they asked me, can I see your vaccine certificate? Then on the vaccine certificate, there was an image of Mr. Modi. So the guy who was like, this doesn't look like you. I said, that's not me. That's my prime minister. He said, prime minister, the who? I said, no, this is my prime. What is your prime minister doing on your Vex card? They call it Vex card. So I said, no, it happens in India. So I was recording that as well. So I said, it happens. Okay, this guy comes here 6 times a day. Like everybody, every Indian comes here and show me. This guy enters this bar 7 times a day. So it was a joke on the absurd nature of that whole COVID certificate and everything. No, I was not necessarily targeting Prime Minister or anything. And I posted it on internet and it got viral. And
it's like you're a teenager underage trying to enter a bar, and then you just steal the card of your uncle. And then you smuggle between your friends. You go to the bathroom, throw, and then you come again. And of course, that poor guy's going to be like, you guys are showing the same photograph. And then, Anurag, I would ask you this question because this relates to the nature of efforts you put into it. How many hours in approximation, and I want to say just approximation, goes from shooting, editing, doing all of that business you do, and publishing?
There are no specific hours as such because my mind is so distracted. It's like I keep 10, 12 tabs open, my editing software open, something open. So everything is.
I mean, just but if you have more than 10 tabs open at the same time, raise your hand. Oh, so there are many clean people. The rest of us are okay. Continue.
And these tabs are also very, there is a rap song going on one tab. On one tab, there is a political article for the print. And, everything is so diverse in that sense. So, yeah, I work like that, but I don't have that hours sense, but I work. I recently realized that I work a lot. Earlier, I used to think I don't even work, but when I calculated, then I realized, oh man, I work.
I mean, this happened with me, especially in academics and writing a book. I didn't realize the kind of time I was putting. I would only calculate the time that I felt was labor. But there is a time which is pre-labor, which is also, which can be, is accounting to labor, especially when you go to work 9 to 5, 8 hours. Technically, you're working 2.5 to 3 hours most at your peak, but the rest of the time. And so I didn't realize the kind of emotional labor, the kind of certainly psychological involvement you do, and there's so much of a draining of energy. Now that you do, are you
But on opposite, I would say I really don't get drained by work at all. In fact, whenever I'm on the table working, then only I feel really alive.
Very good.
So my schedule starts like that. I wake up in the morning and I don't have breakfast or anything. I just have my coffee, and for at least for 4 or 5 hours in the morning, I have to invest something in the creative. It can be anything. It can be poetry, whatever. It has to be like that. So after like 2 o'clock or something, I have my first lunch. The first meal, which is the lunch, and then the whole sluggishness enters, and then I waste my time posting things and watching reels and Twitter. So that the worst activities that I do in my day is post lunch from 2:30 to 6, and then in the evening I start doing something, physical activity or working. So the entire day is centered around doing something. Yeah.
I mean, you put so much energy and effort, and I imagine. Tell me, are you compensated enough, compensated well? And I ask this because not only for your craft, but also the kind of background you come from.
I would be the most least paid famous creator, and I don't mind it at all because to be very honest, I get brand deals and everything on Instagram especially, but they bore me so much that I don't reply, or sometimes if they are messaging more, then I block them. Because sometimes there are also these, if you know, these lottery apps these days. There are a lot of gaming apps. Sorry, these lottery gaming, these kind of things. So there are a lot many these kind of things happen. But I have chosen to not take any kind of brand or any kind of till now. But although it's very difficult to sustain without that, but I had tried to avoid it. In my podcast itself, if you see, it is running since 3 years. And it is among the top category in the political podcast. Yet there is no brand for it. There is no sponsor for it. And everything that I get is from the listeners. So if they want to pay, then they can pay. But it is a totally listener thing. So I don't take any kind of brands.
So do you want to maybe announce the kind of platforms you use so that if interested people can subscribe and maybe support the work you do?
Yeah, my work, it is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or every podcast where one consumes the podcast. And most of my supporters are on Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee and these.
The reason I bring this up is because I've been, I made a conscious choice, and I told many young Dalits and also the Dalits who are sitting here, and also Adivasis, young creators or scholars, writers, thinkers, activists, don't give your time for free. Always compensate for your intelligence, your brilliance, your presence. Don't just attend or if somebody speaks to you and something, value you. Make a currency for your own skills. There is a certain experience, certain intelligence, certain education that only you can proffer. And if somebody is trying to, let's say, interview you, ask more information, you will not see me giving interviews, especially to media people, unless it's because it just makes no sense. They spend an hour talking, and then you just quote it for like a line or two, and you're like, this is bollocks. I could have done. So, I was telling
Because I
Anurag.
also see in your post, like in the panels, or you were saying that
Correct.
you have to be compensated.
So this is just to start valuing yourself from now onwards. And certainly there is a stage where you'll have to keep hustling, but there's a point where you have to put your step down and say, you know what, this is what you have to do. And if they don't want you, they don't want you. That's it. Because now you have to create your own space. And now I understand that this might be difficulty for some people, there might be difficulty for other people, but this is just to say people who are going to also hire, commission, invite people, treat them fairly, treat them equally, and treat them so well, so that there is a certain achievement to the work we do. And if there's not, you should tell us. If you have any difficulty, you should reach out to Suraj Yengde, and Suraj Yengde will help you to navigate that, or talk to your editor or whoever is going to mess up with them, and to make sure. Because I want you to reach to a level where your one word will be compensated for at least $1 per word. So if you write 1,000 words, you should be paid $1,000. And that's the kind of standard rate. And if you give your time, that should be the kind of politics. On that note, we have Q&A for our amazing audience here. Please ask whatever question you want to within the decorum. Don't abuse us. You can go on social media and do that. You can be anonymous as well. And please participate in the discussion. So let's, when you're asking question, raise your hand. If you wanna talk about some breakups you want to do, this is a good forum. You can whine about it. You wanna sing a song, that's also welcome. And you wanna talk about your uncle and auntie, that's also welcome. All right, questions. Is there a cat? We want to bell the cat first, so we can have the. Okay, there is a question there. Gentleman on the left.
Excuse me. My question is to Suraj Yengde. So you are a champion of Dalit Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter you have written on your book, but you haven't said anything much about that angle in this speech. Can we hear something more on that point? Thank you.
There, on the left.
Hello, Suraj. We have met yesterday on the beach. Hope you remember.
Yes, I do.
My question is regarding his question. How could you define Neo-Dalit? What is your views upon Neo-Dalitism and Neo-Dalit or Neo-Dalit activism? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on your left. There is a hand right there.
Hello, the question is for Anurag. Anurag, when can we see, when can we expect your work in films and all? I think for that we are really excited about more than even the Loserism Manifesto. I think we are excited about your films and all. So when can we hear about that?
Anywhere in the back, I think the back benchers should ask, because we should also punish you for sitting here. Anybody in the back? Or just sing a song, or you can whistle also in the mic. It's your chance. Are you going to have a question?
Okay, so my question is, what's your opinion on servants like Delhi elite class who are always talking about Hindu Muslims, having cool books on their shelves, having some kurta, a tote bag, and always ramming we are here for the Dalits, and then again talking about Hindu and Muslims, and never talk about the representations. They are overrepresented everywhere. So what's your opinion on those guys? Because they are, for me, they are like a silent killer for our society.
Good. Okay. Gentleman with the spectacle right there.
Yeah, this is a very different Suraj Yengde session from what I was expecting. I didn't know it was intentional or not.
Thank
But
you.
the title of the session was interesting, Doing Everyday Politics, right? I wanted to link that to student politics in India.
Okay.
Because Anurag, you studied in JNU, if I'm not wrong. So how do you link doing everyday politics to student politics? Because that is everyday politics for people like me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Anurag. We'll take the stab. Acha, so what we'll do, we'll wait for that second round. Just hold on to that question. Keep it on your lips. Don't let it follow. Yes, yes.
So the first question about the film part. So currently I already finished my feature-length documentary, which is going to be released this year. It is basically a film about Rajasthan. So I'm taking a road trip to Rajasthan and doing this quirky sociological study of the whole region. And in that process also exploring my own Dalit community, which is the Meghwal community. And obviously linking it with the idea of tourism in Rajasthan and different cultural nuances. So that is slated to release this year. And the second question about student politics, if you can answer, because I was in JNU like in 2012 and I'm really young. That was long back, yeah.
Anurag is a different generation, JNU. I am the younger one in this generation. Thank you for the questions. I mean, I think, for the Savarna question, I think, I'm at a level I don't need them. And so that doesn't really, and I want to create a space where my people don't need them, because we have to have your own, worked it out, And so that's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. And, if they believe in you or not, is not your problem. It's their ancestors who committed the crime. And if they want to repent, they have to do it much more than just having the shelf and the books and all. And, the question of different kind of political lineages, that is not dependent on what I do. I do my politics. I have a very clear vision. I have a very clear vision of anti-caste Ambedkarite politics. I want to bring that and make it into, and it is now a mainstream kind of genre, which always was, but it was confined to the corners. I think the question about student politics and I think the nature of that, and I'm going to write an article about it because, I mean, 5 years ago-ish, COVID just feels like there were no 2 years, right? I mean, it's like, so about 4 or 5 years ago, I organized a small meeting in Hyderabad of major university Dalit student leaders. I wanted them to get together and think about starting a national student kind of movement. Because there's nothing kind of a pan-India that connects to that. I mean, the meeting went well, but I think there has to be regular follow-up. The people don't have resources. There's no kind of a parent party or kind of organization. But, I think that's kind of one of the way to, deal with it. And also what we should do, we should not pay over attention to Delhi-based or elite universities. I mean, every day I went to the state medium schools and as well as universities. Raw politics happens there. It's in your regional language. There's no posh English. There's no kind of somebody from Delhi coming to cover your elections. It's local. I was kidnapped when I was contesting my first elections. So that's the kind of nature of politics that you deal and you come out of it. Now, many people don't know that I was a student leader since 18 years of age. And so when they read the book, they felt like, I'm sitting in Harvard and writing about it. And the brother has been on the field, been in the gangs and getting kidnapped and doing all kinds of activities, which is not recorded in the police, but in the, So people need to understand that we don't take positions like fairy tales in the sky. It is had to do by conditioning your own experience. And that's why I think today's discussion was not about the black subject as such. We're mostly trying to learn from our star celebrity here to know more about it. But I think there's one thing you should do. I'm telling my people constantly, start celebrating your own self. There are so many amazing talents, there's so much amazing energy, resources. And the more you dig, it's like you're trying to find the best food in the restaurant. After a while, you realize the best food is cooked in your own house by your mother, your father, or whoever it is. And I think that recognizing that the best is within me has to come. And I think the caste system has degraded us in such a way that even we have to go and think about the Savarna validations. That don't work. You have to be confident and smart enough that just doesn't concern you. You just walk like you rule that space, not to undermine anybody, but just to win the hearts of people who are around you. And it's not a difficult task to do, but it's just to espouse your own ancestors. We'll take a last round of questions. You, please, yeah.
So my first question is to Anurag. Like recently we had a controversy regarding the maiden heaven, where one side we had Yashika Dutt and the second side we had Neeraj Gaiwan, and both of Dalits fighting bitterly against each other, whereas Zoya Akhtar and they are benefiting out of it. What was your opinion regarding it? And second question to Suraj sir. Like in 1998 we had 4 Dalit MPs in Maharashtra. I'm also from Maharashtra. So do you think that in any time future, at least at the present moment, we don't even have one proper also. So do you think that can change at some point of time?
Good evening, sir. Yeah, my question to you, it is all about the politics. We have Mayavati still, and one point of time she was a prominent politician in India. What we see is that she's declining, especially when we talk about next year election, 2024 election. She's invisible, and we are talking about that actually we are talking about marginalized community. I don't know, you are not, today you are focusing on that. But sir, what we are seeing that Dalit politics is declining. What is the solution?
The resolution is it has to rise and it has to have a counter kind of thing. I mean, since we are in Kerala, one of the Kerala and Andhra, these two states have been, there's not a popular groundswell Dalit movement. We don't see popular figures. There was one MP who was a Congress party leader in Lok Sabha, Mr. Suresh here, but the rest of the India doesn't know about him, and as a whole kind of, so what we need to create, and I was talking to some leaders here, Sunny and Ambu Jackson and others, who, what can we do? What can the younger generation think about the politics? There has to be a certain resurgence about it. And for that to happen, I think the younger generation, especially the youth politics, the student politics, have to now start becoming mainstream. They have to take on the stage and create a kind of mild chaos, not in an anarchic form, but chaos in the sense of a settled system. And unless we do that, we kind of create a system of, because I went and saw the Dalit colonies, and it's such a shameful for a communist state to have that. I mean, they were just, when it was raining, they were flooded and you couldn't just go. So I think there has to be a classic politics that, and for that, Mayawati is a solid response to Modi for 2024. Because there are ideologies that are fighting. There is an ideology of BJP, which is RSS, which is claiming to be an Hindu Rashtra. Now, there is one ideology that is antithesis of Hindu Rashtra, who says if Hindu Rashtra becomes a reality, it will be a disaster for the country. That is an Ambedkarite ideology. An Ambedkarite ideology is visible nationally in BSP. Now, other parties of regional hues, we don't see them having such clear. I think there are only 3 political parties, to my assessment, who have a clear ideological position. The BJP, the Communist, and the BSP. Except the 3 parties, other parties are just trying to work with the feudal nature of how politics should run. And I think that's the kind of difficulty we have in our current times. But I think, look carefully, if Modi can play the card of OBC and have the appreciation of the OBC kind of vote bank politics in this, the only national party with an ideological footprint whose cadres vote for the ideology is BSP. And she's a Dalit and she's a woman. And if she is strengthened enough, we might as well have a 2024 first Dalit woman Prime Minister. So hold on to that and think about the positivity rather than saying declining, because the Brahminical media will never do. Anurag, you want to take quick response to that first question before we close?
I know both of them personally, so it's obviously very difficult for me to take sides in that whole thing. But both of them are really articulate and very important people. The only thing which really saddens me in that whole thing is that the pie given to marginalized people is so small that they keep on fighting with each other, and the larger pie, with whom it stays, they enjoys the whole perks of it. The same with the Made in Heaven, like these 2 people, like both are in their own way struggling. Like Neeraj is also struggling to make his films in that whole scenario, in that whole Savarna operated Bollywood. Yashika is also struggling, but you know the production house and everything. I think for them it was a very small thing to give the credit, and for the production house, why they didn't give it, I really have no idea. But it's quite sad how it happened.
And that's why we don't want slice. We want a fair share. And so when I told Kerala Literature Festival organizers, I proposed them at least 4 or 5 panels. They say we'll just give 2. I was like, that's welcoming call. Down the line we'll have more, where the more authors will come. And I think that's the kind of assertion of politics that we are taking up, we are trying to create. Let's thank Ravi DC. Let's thank Govind DC. Let's thank the entire volunteers. Let's thank the people who are here. Let's give it up to them for their excellent work, their volunteering, and their beautiful smile. Ladies and gentlemen, we had Anurag minus Varma. Please go, subscribe him, he's on YouTube, and keep fighting against the nefarious caste and kind of politics that is animating our life. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim.